men, they're kind of like the same every day because their hormones are the same every day. So
Mhm,
they have this rhythm that is a daily rhythm where we have a monthly rhythm. So
mhm.
our hormones are different every day of that month. And we can either, complain about it and I don't know, like be dramatic about it, which we see on social media and like, or even commercials like Might All makes it all go away, for example. No,
Yeah.
like if we are having horrible PMS symptoms, then we need to use those as clues that God gave us that something is wrong. Because if you're having hard, heavy periods or something wrong with your cycle in your 20s, that's going to look like something else in your 40s and 50s.
Do you feel like your hormones have turned against you? Trust us, you're not alone. We're Dr. Serena and Dr. Heidi, and on Hormone Heroines, we explore all the root causes that are behind hormone imbalances, and we teach you how to thrive through them. Join us for real talk, expert tips, and even a few laughs.
Hi, and welcome back to Hormone Heroines. I'm Dr. Heidi.
And I'm Dr. Serena, and today we're going to be talking to Dr. Jen Pfleghaar. She is a double board certified physician in emergency and integrative medicine. She earned her medical degree at Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine, completed her residency at St. Vincent's Mercy Hospital, and fellowship at the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. She believes true wellness thrives when body, mind, and spirit are aligned with God's design. Diagnosed with Hashimoto's, she became passionate about autoimmune healing, hormone balance, and root cause medicine. Dr. Jen co authored Eat, Sleep, Move, Breathe, serves on the boards of the Invisible Disabilities Association and American Board of Integrative Medicine. Through her practice, Healthy by Dr. Jen, she provides vital care and shares education at Integrative Dr. Mom. She lives on a mini farm in Tennessee with her husband and 4 children. She loves cheering at her kids' games, lifting weights, reading scripture, and tending to her chickens. Her newest book, The Perimenopause Reset, was written on a mission to change the health of 500,000 women navigating perimenopause, empowering them with faith-based, science-backed strategies to reclaim their energy, clarity, and joy. We are so excited to have you today. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Super excited to have a good discussion.
Yes, thank you for bringing up this very passionate topic. I am in the throes of perimenopause, so I love hearing about everybody else's experiences and what everybody else knows too, because you can always learn. The more I learn, the more I know I need to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
it's just
let's,
a
oh,
special time for women,
it
I mean,
is.
yeah. And I think the hard thing is we see social media and obviously it's addicting, right? And like we like to I don't know, we like to complain with people. We like to think things are sad or wallow in it. And we don't need to. We need to like reclaim that and just have joy. Have joy in every season of life because it's all
Yeah.
hard.
Well, I
Yeah.
feel like it's a very empowering time of life too. At least for me, it's been very empowering trying to figure out my new me.
Yeah, I don't know. I see it differently. I see it as like humbling, refinement, sanctification, death to self a little, but that's my personal experience with perimenopause. It has been
Yeah.
less about me and more about my family. And with doing that, I feel the best I've ever felt. So it's been good. So I kind of flipped the script a little bit with perimenopause, putting the um, faith-based in which has really with seeing hundreds and hundreds of patient perimenopause without that they're
Mhm.
still lost you know
Yeah.
um because part of me like functional and integrative medicine is like the new conventional medicine and I'm like it's just not working because I see people when they've been to like so many people, so many doctors, even functional doctors, even integrative
Yeah.
doctors, even naturopaths. Yeah, so I put a little bit of a spin on it. Yeah, but it's been great. I love my patients. I love the women on I've met through social media and we're all getting through it and thriving.
Yep. Okay, so today we're going to talk about cycle syncing secrets, how to eat, train, and thrive in perimenopause. So let's get to it.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, because we have other people listening, not just doctors, can you explain perimenopause and why women need to know about it?
Yeah, and I think you guys said it, right? How you just kind of feel different. You don't feel like yourself. And hormones are changing. We're getting older and we're entering to menopause. And people have heard of menopause where we have complete cessation of like our ovaries functioning. So women are primed to carry babies, to have birth, and estradiol is an important factor in that, plus our other hormones. And when we don't have any more follicles in our ovaries, then that feedback loop is disrupted and we have menopause. We don't have our cycles anymore. Cycles are part of our fertility. It's a vital sign for how well our hormones are balanced. And perimenopause is this time leading up. So we're having decreasing progesterone, and that is declining. It's just a steady downward slope, like a good
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that is like, we know that is more consistent, but then we have
Mhm.
estradiol, which is super erratic, like a roller coaster. So, like a sledding hill versus like a roller coaster going up and down as we have these surges. So, this is why it
Right.
makes it kind of complicated and confusing, but it doesn't have to be. The interesting thing, I don't know if you guys have seen this in your practice, is that women are getting these perimenopause symptoms, such as, not feeling like themselves, waking, fatigue, problems sleeping, palpitations, anxiety, the list goes on, earlier
Yeah.
and earlier, younger and younger, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I had a 29-year-old who's actually going through that, more of a kind of a
Mm.
premature ovarian failure, but it hasn't failed yet. So she's like already going through perimenopause, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
been a big trend in our practice lately
Yeah.
where we've seen a lot more
Yeah.
premature ovarian failure, which is basically early onset perimenopause.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think the hard part is because they are so young, it's not even on the radar when they go to a regular doctor. When
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you guys said it correctly, like, we're still learning. Like, I'll always be learning. It's the problem I've seen is this like pride gets in the way of like conventional medicine doctors or
Oh
even,
yeah.
yeah, or even other doctors where they're like, oh, I know it all. I'm done learning. And you're like, no, that's
Mhm.
not how it works. It's continue growing. But they'll go to their doctor and they'll say, I don't feel like myself. Like maybe I'm a little depressed, maybe I'm a little anxious. And they're like, oh, like you need to be on antidepressants. Or they're like, my cycle is just different. It's like shortening, it's unpredictable. They're like, oh, let's go on birth control, which will
Yep.
Mhm.
regulate your cycle. So this is literally what women are given. And I'm sure you guys have heard this. And it's just like, you could almost like guarantee it. It's like, let's put money on what you're going to get if you go to your insurance
Yeah.
based conventional doctor. Yeah. So, and the interesting thing is I use an oven analogy. I don't know. I like to cook and bake.
Oh,
With
I always use analogies, so I'm all up for
good.
more that I can use.
So this was great. So think like get on your apron or get ready to cook with your kids or whatever. But our ovens as women, like think of like the oven, heating up to 350 is menopause. Like we all
Hmm.
preheat at different times. So if you go to your parents' house versus your house, we're all different. And that's what makes us unique. So you can't compare, like I can't compare my menopause journey with yours. Like we can't do that. So we have to think of it. We're all personalized. We're all different. You can get a little bit of, an idea if you look at parents, if you look at your siblings, when they went through menopause, that is a pretty good predictor. But sometimes we can see that accelerated due to like, I've seen a lot of really stress on the body, either
Mhm.
Hmm.
stress due to root cause problems like stealth infections versus just stress like of life put them into early perimenopause or earlier and earlier symptoms of that. And we know
Yeah.
that because of imbalance of progesterone and estrogen. So the good news is if we recognize that, we can use tools like cycle syncing to regulate it and get our body back on track and more comfortable.
Hmm.
So, on that note, what exactly is cycle syncing and why should women pay attention to it?
Yeah, yeah. So it's so funny because men, they're kind of like the same every day because their hormones are the same every day. So
Mhm.
they have this rhythm that is a daily rhythm where we have a monthly rhythm. So
Hmm.
our hormones are different every day of that month. And we can either, complain about it and I don't know, like be dramatic about it, which we see on social media and like or even commercials like Might All makes it all go away, for example. No,
Yeah.
like if we are having horrible PMS symptoms, then we need to use those as clues that God gave us that something is wrong. Because if you're having hard, heavy periods or something wrong with your cycle in your 20s, that's going to look like something else in your 40s and 50s, usually hormone related cancer, and it's not, it's like we have to pay attention to these symptoms now because it means something. Same with, we can use like an example of getting a stomach ache. Like I used to think that, oh, I have an upset stomach, I'm going to take some Tums. And no, like if someone would have told me that is a sign that something's wrong. Maybe I wouldn't have had a Hashimoto's growing up. Maybe someone would have said, hey, your gut's probably inflamed. Let's get to the root cause. Let's fix that. So our hormones are the same way. We have to really dig into what's going on. Now, part of this, like I said, is an imbalance of progesterone and estrogen, but also it's fighting our cycle. So we have these two parts of the cycle, the follicular phase, which is the first half of the cycle. This
Mhm.
is where we have more estrogen compared to progesterone. So estrogen is kind of shining here. And then the second half of the cycle, after ovulation, and this is the luteal phase, this is when progesterone should be more predominant and progesterone should shine. And we have different things that come when that is out of balance too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so when we think about getting our body ready to carry a baby, and this is what our cycle was designed for. This is why we have a menstrual cycle and a 28-day cycle versus a man that just has a 24-hour cycle. So
Yeah.
our yeah, and like I think this is also interesting if men like don't know about this, they should probably learn about the menstrual cycle and work with it with their wife, with their girlfriend, whatever, because
And daughters. And I think it's a huge,
yes,
it really
yes,
needs to be taught to fathers of daughters. Like they need to be
yes.
able to understand this. My husband knows everything about the menstrual cycle.
Well, we make it like a joke. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be a little bit more emotional because I'm luteal phase, like more
Hmm.
sensitive, right? So that second half, that luteal phase, so this is progesterone. So we need to protect the progesterone. We want to decrease stress. We want to just think of like, our body is getting ready for implantation and to hold a baby. So we don't want to do stressful things. Okay. So the luteal phase, that second half of that cycle, what happens a lot because it's trendy the last few years is fasting. So we have a
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
yeah, so we have a woman coming into perimenopause and they're gaining weight, so they're freaking out, right? So what are they going to do? How to lose weight fast and what's going to come up like cardio, high intensity interval training, all of that.
Calorie
And
cutting, all of the fun stuff.
oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So exactly. And so they go to Orange Theory or they go to do a hit workout and maybe it works for a couple months, but then they end up gaining weight, right? But
Hmm.
we're if we do those things in that luteal phase of our cycle, that is going to stress the body out. And that, stress can affect our insulin levels. Stress is going to have us hold on to weight because our body is like hunkering down. It's going to affect that progesterone too, because our body is going to shift to down the hormone cascade to cortisol, and the progesterone is going to be depleted. Now, this is like multiplied during perimenopause because remember, we have this downhill, this sled hill of progesterone. Yeah, so we feel that like estrogen dominance is what we call it because it's an imbalance
Hmm.
of hormones. Now, fasting though is such a good tool. So what do? We can't just like throw it out and say it's not good. No, we can do it in the follicular phase, that first half of the cycle. Now, some women, once they start bleeding, they need a couple days. They're like, they feel a little depleted. I usually day 3, 4, I'm like, let's go, running sprints, ready to go. So it
Right.
just listen to your body a little. But this is where you want to start fasting. If you want to try keto for 2 weeks, do keto, and then in your luteal phase, shift to more carbohydrates or more calories. So this follicular phase is where I tell patients to initiate these things like intermittent fasting, like a carnivore, like a keto, if we want to do those things. Not during the luteal phase because I know they're going to fail. They're going to restrict and binge. Their body
Hmm.
does not do well. So during that follicular phase, the fasting, it's not going to cause as much of a stress response. We are more insulin sensitive during that follicular phase, and we're more insulin resistant during the luteal phase. So let's talk about what that means. So insulin sensitive means actually our body during the follicular ways phase would do okay with carbs,
Mhm.
but also more stress resilient here. So this is why I have patients do the fasting, do the more keto. If they're going to cut calories more, like lean down, that's when they're going to do it. If we
Mhm.
go to the luteal phase, we're more insulin resistant. So it's kind of like, oh, that doesn't make sense, like adding calories. Well, we have more of a calorie demand there. And
Right.
when I say we're adding carbs, I'm not giving permission to like eat a donuts, right?
Yeah.
That yeah. So, I mean, we're doing healthy carbs. Like this is like when I really like to snack on popcorn and sometimes I put like, like the protein popcorn powder on there and stuff. But like we're not like shaming ourselves for eating carbs or calories, which happens so much in our culture. I've
Right.
seen there's continuous glucose monitors where patients have gained weight. I don't have you guys seen that? Patients gaining weight,
Mhm.
intermittent fasting?
You know how us women are always just pushing through it, and then when we go to find help, we're often not taken seriously or told, "Oh, that's just part of being a woman."
Yeah, we've lived through it. Prioritizing everybody else and then our own health falls to the wayside.
That's why we started Blossoming Longevity by women for women.
We created programs that meet women where they are, addressing the root causes and all of the struggles that come with every stage of life. Like our Vitality program, it reconnects you with your youth and your life so that you can thrive through the years.
And with Clarity, we go beyond the skin to restore your health, clear your complexion so you can feel radiant from the inside out.
With our Silhouette program, we help you reclaim your strength, optimize your metabolism and your body composition so that you can feel great in your body again.
And with Harmony, we help you rebalance your hormones to heal from within so you can feel vibrant and ready to take on the world. That is why it's time to stop settling and start flourishing.
Visit blossominglongevity.com today. Yes.
Yes, it's actually.
I love intermittent fasting. I was not a breakfast person and
Mm.
I liked having just that eating window. And of course, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So everything was calories in, calories out.
So fat.
Carbohydrates are bad, like fat is bad, all the I know that's not true now, but that's always like in the back of my mind. But I've always loved intermittent fasting. And then when I started going in deeper into perimenopause, it worked for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
But when I started going deeper into perimenopause, it did not work at all. Like at all. My body did not like it. It
Yes.
completely rejected it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have a similar experience where I had an eating disorder growing up and it got to the point where I didn't lose any more weight because I was in such a calorie deficit. My body was just hanging on to it. So
Yeah.
I learned that that wasn't gonna work for my body just through
Yeah.
that experience, even before I got to or getting to that next phase in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with women, it's very emotional. Like eating is there's a lot of women that have eating, not maybe not even eating disorders, but like have that thing where sometimes they do binge or emotionally eat and stuff. And it's more tied to women than men we see. So what I
Yeah.
love
More
about
disordered eating than eating
not
disordered.
disordered.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And we even see that like in the health world, right? Like I'll
Oh,
like people like, oh, you have to eliminate everything from your diet and everything is bad. Or, and I'm like, well, they're so stressed out that their gut health is messed up because of that, right? Like, so what if
right.
out everything that irritates the gut? So yeah, we need to
Exactly.
bring it back in balance. So I had a patient that was gained weight intermittent fasting. So we put a continuous glucose monitor on her. She was actually menopausal and she was spiking every morning, a big glucose, which is insulin cortisol spike. Put her
Mhm.
on 3 meals a day with the morning meal, having a lot of protein and healthy fats. And she dropped a couple dress sizes. So just with that. So that is where when we look at the stress component, we really have
Mhm.
to be mindful of that. And a lot of the times our bodies, if we're we might wake up one morning and we're like, oh my goodness, I'm hungry and I'm usually not, or, eat, like listen to your body, eat healthy food. So that luteal phase, if it's okay to increase calories, it's okay if you're doing keto more and you're not doing the refeeding, which I think is a good idea to change things up. You could just
Right.
increase fats if you wanted to. So I do have some patients that they're like, I just want to stay keto. But the carbs are going to be healthy carbs. Okay. And we're going to try to eat the carbs, at the end of the meal. And we're
Mhm.
also going to, wear a continuous glucose monitor and see balance your blood sugar. You can eat lots of fiber and some carbs with a meal and still have a flattened curve. We don't want these big spikes.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard because women, we just really don't tolerate carbs as we age as well, but we still want to balance that with our hormones and how they work. But
Well, and we still need them to keep our muscle too. So like people also don't understand that in perimenopause and menopause, you lose a lot of muscle and it's
yeah.
harder to build it and you have to feed your body to build it. Otherwise, it's going to take it from your muscle.
Yeah, so after age 40, we lose like 1 to 2% of our muscle mass as we go on. And the big scare with this is that everyone is getting on, a GLP-1 shot.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's accelerating muscle loss if they aren't eating protein, if they're not lifting weights.
Right.
So that's really hard to see because these women are going to have a really hard time building muscle if they just lose it to just be skinny. So
Yeah.
yeah, so muscle is also going to be a buffer for that luteal phase and eating some of those carbs. So I've noticed personally, like I have such a buffer with like eating right now
Mhm.
because I have more muscle mass. So, it's a nice buffer for shuttling that glucose floating around the body into the muscle. And it helps with that insulin resistance, which leads to diabetes, which we don't want.
Right.
So, muscle is really important. So, another part of that is like working out. So we talked a little bit before about like the hit workouts and stuff. So should we just lift all the time and not do any cardio? Well, that is a question and digging into the research, we do want aerobic capability and capacity and VO2 max is consistent, with longevity, and
Right.
aging. So when we would want to do those, you could do the hit workout. You can do the sprints. I do sprints. I do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 10 minutes. We do that in the follicular phase. So remember, in that follicular phase, our body is more resistant to stress, can handle it a little bit more. So build that into your cycle. And I don't know about you guys, but like when you're in that second half of your cycle, like you don't want to run sprints. You don't
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
yourself, right? It's like
Right.
Yeah. No,
it
I'm
doesn't
hungry and tired.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
kind of going off of that a little bit, can you really quickly before we go back to exercise, can you kind of explain in each phase there's different fluctuations of the hormones, right? But how
Mhm.
does that affect women's moods and fatigue and energy levels all over and like even metabolism because I think people really don't understand like yeah, you can say do these things at these times, but I don't think they really understand why we're saying that.
Yeah. So I'll keep it like simple, just follicular and luteal, because there is like a
Perfect.
menstrual phase where, like I said, those first couple days of bleeding, you might feel a little bit low energy, but the follicular phase, that's when estradiol is kind of the queen bee. She's doing great and we're getting more energy. Okay.
Okay.
Ovulation is the best time to do like a photo shoot. We're glowing. We get a little bump in our testosterone because it's kind of like my turkey that I have. Like he prances around, looks pretty, right? Like
Yeah.
that's because it's for mating. Our hormones are all around procreation, taking dominion over the earth. Like this is like what it's about, right? So it's nice because you can like plan things sometimes, based on that.
Mhm.
But if not, it's no big deal either. So then that luteal phase, that's when progesterone is more predominant. And that's when we are like, we're hunkering down and we're not maybe as motivated for projects, but we might be a little bit more creative. Same with around ovulation. And we are getting ready to, to be pregnant, to have that implantation. And then it starts all over again. So progesterone kind of calms things down because we're like ready to go. We're doing all the things. And progesterone's like, hey, let's just relax and chill out a little bit. So it's good to give yourself grace. I think that's the biggest thing is that we don't need to operate on the same high level performance all the time. Like we really don't. And I don't know, I'm a recovering type A personality, so I definitely was
Yeah.
terrible at
Yeah.
Me too. We both
Yeah.
are type A.
yeah, yeah. I always say I'm a recovering type A. It's funny because we just moved to Tennessee last February or like 9 months ago. And like people don't know like how type A I used to be. Like it's gotten better with every kid. I've gotten more and more relaxed. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I
yeah,
have 4 kids too, so it's like you're kind of a little bit OCD almost with the first one, and then it just kind of trails off because you learn you can't control anything.
it's very humbling to know, yeah,
Yes.
control. So, yeah, that is a big part of me that I had to release. So that's great. So, back to like the muscle and the working out. So, first half of that cycle, that follicular phase. So you're gonna feel like excited to run sprints, to do hit workouts. Like you're gonna be crushing it at the gym. You're gonna hit PRs. We're gonna lift heavy. Okay, so lifting, lifting, lifting. Women need to lift throughout their cycle, but
Mhm.
this is when you're gonna like lift heavy, like put an extra 45 pounds on the leg squat, or you can warm up and see how you feel, but this is where you're going to really push it and your body is going to be okay with that. There's not going to be any negative consequences to this. Okay. And you could still like go on your walks and stuff for extra. That's fine. But this is when you're gonna, push the sprints. Like I said, VO2
Mhm.
max is important and really having that aerobic capability. This is so important too. Side note, we recently got some mini cows and my heifer escaped and
Oh, no.
I had to sprint after her and I was like, I'm so glad I'm in my follicular phase. I'm like,
If I was in my luteal phase, I would have missed her.
I know. Well, I'm like, or I would have been like, that would have been so stressful on my body. I'll probably get like a shortened cycle, right? Because that's one of the
Yeah,
signs of progesterone being delinquent deficient, and that estrogen imbalance is shortened cycles. So we're 28 should be the goal, 27, 28, 29 should be the goal. But then we kept going, 26, 24. So that shortening cycle, we don't want that. So anyway, it was funny because I was like, this is why I stay in shape. This is why I don't just lift. This is why I do run sprints on the treadmill. We know sprints are very good for women. So anyway, pretty funny. But
yeah.
she's fine now. It's like a whole thing. So yeah. So then when we hit ovulation in that luteal
Mhm.
phase, this is where we are more prone to injury. So we talked about the cortisol and the stress with fasting and the hit workouts with fasting that can, overload our cortisol and then have negative consequences. We are also more likely to get injured. And they've done studies on these football, which is soccer, abroad
Yeah.
in England, and they had more injuries during their luteal phase. So we are going to get more injured. And I don't know if this has happened to you guys, but some days I'll be in my luteal phase and I'll feel real good and I'm like, I'm going to go like heavy on the weights still, and then I like tweak my back. I mean, that's happened to me with squats so many times. I'm like, I feel great. And I didn't
Yeah.
pay attention, or I pushed past because my type A personality pushed past what my what's going on physiologically with my hormones, and then I got a little injury tweak. So still do weights, but don't go for PRs. Like, don't like, no, like, take it back. Who cares what the person in the gym thinks of you? And they're like, well, they're not
Yeah.
lifting. No, do more reps, like honor like your cycle and don't get hurt. Cause if you're hurt, then you're out for a while. So,
And you'll be hurt past your follicular phase because it takes us longer to heal.
well, yes and no. Yeah. But well, there's peptides to help healing and stuff. But
Yes, true.
so what we want to do is just be more mindful of the cycle. So what do we do instead? So we still lift, okay, but
Mhm.
not as heavy, maybe more reps, okay, but we're still activating that muscle. We're still eating protein. We're still taking our creatine, all of that. We can do walks with the weighted vests. Everyone likes that. There's a study also on they looked at people walking on the treadmill for fat burning, and
Mhm.
it was 3 miles per hour at a 12% grade for 30 minutes. And it was a really good energy expenditure balance versus fat loss. So you could do that. You could do an incline walk. Getting out in nature is always great. You could do mobility exercises where you're stretching during that luteal phase and doing like active recovery. So there's still so much we can do, so much movement. That way we're just we're not getting hurt and we are not stressing out our body. I actually had a patient that this is okay. One of the worst things you can do in perimenopause. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I'm
Okay.
sorry. Science. is run a marathon in perimenopause. When I see someone doing that, I like cringe and I'm like, ugh. And like, we know it's not good. But then I actually had a patient that messed up her hormones for, well, it took like 6 months for them to recover, um,
Mhm.
and gained 20 pounds. When she
Oh,
crossed
geez. Yeah.
crossed that marathon finish, she was 20 pounds heavier and she trained for a marathon. Yeah. So, but that goes back to everything we just learned about. We're affecting cortisol. Cortisol is going to have you hang on to that belly fat. It's going to disrupt your hormones. It's going to make you feel more perimenopausal because that hormone balance is off. So, there could be a way to train for something that you really want to do if you just utilize it with your cycle syncing. Do your heavy training, all the long stuff in that, follicular phase, luteal phase, do more recovery type workouts, maybe what tempo runs or whatever. I used to run half marathons, not anymore. So just well, yeah, now I'm just like, no, like not a good
I'm
idea.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Following your own advice.
Yes.
right. So there are ways to tweak it and you could also tweak your calories. Now, say you do want to run a 5K or something and you're like, "Well, I looked at my cycle and I'm in my luteal phase the day of the race." Your body is resilient. This isn't meant to be like a scare tactic or, you can't do something every once in a while in the wrong part of your cycle. It doesn't work like that. Our bodies are super resilient. It's just the day in and day out. We want to be more aware of what our hormones are
Right.
doing to complement it and just to support.
So it sounds like a lot of the cycle syncing is being more intuitive to your body and really listening to your body, which I think can be really hard in today's day and age because we're generally told to like always push through it and push past everything to just like get things done or get to the next thing.
Especially as moms and working moms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but we talked a lot about how to like biohack our cycle with strength training, exercise, as well as eating. Is there any other like biohack tips that you have that can help us improve like our blood sugar, fat loss, and overall hormonal health besides the things we already covered?
Yeah, I definitely, if you haven't worn a continuous glucose monitor, I would recommend wearing that for a full cycle and just seeing if there's certain triggers that happen or certain foods that you just can't, eat that snack while you're in the car. You have to, eat protein and fat before it. So I think that can be really helpful. Um, the other thing is coffee too. I know we all like our coffee and caffeine, so caffeine by itself can be a cortisol stressor or a trigger. So I
Mhm.
talk about this in the book because I really dove into the studies with this. And if you're having just coffee on an empty stomach without anything else, like black coffee, yes, you probably just want to have decaf. But if you want to have caffeine, you can put some fat in there or like amino
Mhm.
acids or something to kind of like buffer it. And it's not just like a shock like to the adrenal system. So that is really helpful because I know everyone loves their coffee. And this is where if you wore a continuous glucose monitor, you'd be able to see how it affects you. So I think that is really helpful. And then, all parts of the cycle, I think you touched on it that if we're working mothers, if we're stay at home mothers, which is hard to, we have aging parents, we have all these things that
Mhm.
we do really give ourselves some grace that we are spending time, reading the Bible, doing breath work, doing meditation, doing all that to really get in that parasympathetic space because that is another thing that we could do everything perfect, be on every peptide, eat perfect, work out perfect. Everything is great. But then, we are just still like at this unrest and we don't have peace and we're living in the fight or flight or the sympathetic system. And we need to have that parasympathetic, that rest or digest. And I think this is a big part of why there are so many fertility problems now. We are
Mhm.
just constantly like on phones, notifications, all of it. And if you start being more aware of like, how do I feel after I watch the news or even watch TV or, on your phone versus what it, when I'm in community, when I'm at church, when I'm doing that kind of stuff, like just feel the difference. For me, it's been very interesting taking care of animals, and I'm sure you guys heard the guinea fowls and the roosters in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It's okay. I have chickens too. So,
Yeah. Well, just like when you're in that, when you are in nature, like that, your body feels safe. It's back in that parasympathetic. And that is how we get a lot of healing. You can get a vagal nerve stimulator. I use that every night before bed. Um, but really, we just have to be aware of what our body like, that we're overstimulated all the time. And I've had to have a lot of hard conversations with patients about that like, look, like you just can't take a supplement like a pill. We really have to get to like why, do you have trauma? What's going on with your limbic system? And that's going to also help that transition from perimenopause to menopause. Um, Speaking of supplements and medications, once we are doing all these other things, we can do things to help increase the progesterone during that luteal
Mhm.
phase. So early perimenopause, chaste tree berry or Vitex is really helpful. So that helps our body produce like a little boost to its own progesterone during that luteal phase. But then if we're in late perimenopause or I'm looking at the lab work and I'm like, yeah, your progesterone's really low. Yes, we're working on the cortisol. We're working on the estrogen detox. We're working on all the other things. But I'm like, hey, like we're going to get some progesterone, some bioidentical progesterone in here in
Right.
the mix during that luteal phase. And that, I'm sure you guys have seen it. That has been like life changing for women.
Yes, it has. We've had lots of patients tell us that hormones
Yeah.
have changed their lives.
Well, yeah.
Progesterone does feel like that miracle, like
Yeah.
miracle hormone when you get it back.
That is, yeah, and we want to test, not guess. I have switched most of my perimenopausal women on oral.
Mhm.
Progesterone, it helps with the sleep. You can do topical too. Even younger women, if you have younger women listening, if their cycle is out of wax and their doctor is like, oh, you can only do birth control, that's the only option we have to regulate your period. Well, no, they can
Yeah.
also have a luteal phase progesterone. I usually do
Mhm.
top on my younger patients, and that has saved so many of them from going on birth control, from heavy bleeding, or PMS, or whatever the excuse is to use off-label birth control as regulating period, because that is off-label for birth control, by the way.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. We see
But
that all the time. We have people come to us all the time on it, and we switch them to bioidentical.
Yeah,
yeah,
especially like PCOS cases,
Mhm.
and then they're usually just so low in progesterone. Then you get them on the progesterone, they feel so much better, and they suddenly have more regular cycles, and they just
yeah.
do better. Yeah.
Body's like, "Oh, thank you." Like, I wasn't deficient in conjugated equine estrogen, which is toxic. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
it's but it's really hard because if you look at the messaging out there and what's in our face, it's pharmaceutical, pharmaceutical. Even now, if we're seeing, have you guys seen the campaign of "Let me see your patch" and the estradiol patch for women in menopause? And I'm like, do you know what's in that patch? It's actually petroleum-based products. So your
Mm.
body, you're getting with your estradiol, which is bioidentical. Yes, that is a step in the right direction. But that patch, the adhesives and the delivery system is made from petroleum, which is an endocrine disruptor. So
Mhm.
we also need to use discernment when we're seeing the loudest and the most, the biggest faces out there in perimenopause or menopause, and see if they are pushing something that is not healthy. Wolves in sheep clothing. This is not new concepts. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up because I went down a rabbit hole on petroleum and why it's pushed and why the byproducts are pushed. And that is a tin hat. That is another time. That is a story for another time. But
Okay. Well,
it's very
for this
interesting.
time, yeah. Do you have any cool texts or apps or stuff that women can actually use in perimenopause to kind of cycle track and sync their cycle correctly, like you were telling them to do?
There's not one yet. That's actually one of my projects that I have, doing a
Okay.
based one. Yeah. I mean, I just use a generic one, which I hate because it gives me all these weird suggestions and articles. And I'm
Yeah.
like, is this what women are seeing? This is like, so I just like post and ghost, which I do on social media sometimes when it gets heavy, I just post it and go. So but definitely make sure you're tracking your cycle and noticing really subtle things. If you are early 1 month, look back and say, was I more stressed? What happened here? And we saw that with the pandemic. When people would get sick, it would mess up their cycle. I
Mm-hmm.
know when I moved, because I hadn't had, like, moving's one of the most stressful things you could do. My cycle was jacked. I think I had like a 14-day cycle, and I started bleeding. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, I really was stressed. I'm like, ah. So there are moments that is gonna you might get off track, but it's okay. It's all about, like, recovering, working with someone that knows hormones that can walk you through that. Like, well, why did you have a 24-day cycle and you were doing so well? Let's stay on track. And we also have to know that perimenopause, you will start when you get later and later in perimenopause, you will have wacky cycles. It might be kind of wild. So don't get frustrated. And like I said, you have to work with someone that knows that, how they can use that progesterone to get you through to menopause than when you could be on full bioidentical hormones and do
hmm,
it safely.
yeah.
So then, kind of as a wrap up, like what would a perfect cycle sync week look like for a woman?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. Okay. So let's just do a follicular phase week and then a luteal phase week. So follicular phase week, you would get up and you could do a fasted workout because your body could do okay with this. If you wanted to, you could run sprints. Sometimes I usually do like a leg day and then sprints to, like, burn out the quads. You're doing great. You're in ketosis, have your creatine. And then you can, eat later, like around noon or something. Have some fat and protein. Maybe you're doing carnivore for a few days or more keto because you're trying to lean down. So you know your body is going to do well with this. You're in keto, you're very sharp, you're doing great. You're getting tasks done, you feel very motivated. Um, your immune system is prime because you're in your follicular phase. Okay, so then we move into luteal phase. Wake up, maybe do some mobility workout depending on what time. Have some coffee with cream and or coffee with ketones or butter or MCT oil and amino acids. Have some eggs, have some bacon. If you want to have, something with some carbs, like some sweet potato you can, but you can also just eat, like, lots of fat. So you've done your workout, you've done everything else. Then plan your lunch and dinner. Make sure you're still, eating 3 meals a day. You're not snacking all day. You're not just eating chocolate all day, but yeah. Um, maybe it's luteal phase and, you have a bunch of friends that are going out, and maybe you're just like, hey, can we all just meet at someone's house and just hang out, and talk and be in community there. Um, you're making sure you're getting in your sleep during luteal phase. So you might be taking that progesterone before bed, maybe a little extra magnesium because your body needs it. This is a time in luteal phase because of estradiol getting lower and the change in the hormones, and because our body is preparing to maybe have an implant and have something that is not all our DNA in there, our immune system is a
Yes.
little bit more suppressed. So
Mhm.
the worst thing you could do in your luteal phase is, eat a bunch of sugar, which suppresses our immune system, right? And be like, oh, I got the green card for luteal phase. I'm just gonna go and eat a bunch of candy. No, because then that's going to have other consequences. So we want to have smart, healthy carbs, things that aren't bumping our blood sugar and our insulin really high. So also keep in mind that that is that luteal phase that you don't want to be in bed sick. You don't want to feel worse. So make sure you're not staying up late and binging on TV. Make sure you're going to bed and still being smart about things. So I would say that's kind of like the perfect balance. If life isn't throwing crazy things at you, then that would look like a good, good days in those cycles.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Well, great. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on our show today. We really, really appreciate it. It's been very interesting and I love it. Any last bit of words for our listeners? Like, where can they find you? What books do you have available for them? Anything you want to say?
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of the hub is Healthy by Dr. Jen, and I'm on Instagram and YouTube at Integrative Dr. Mom, Integrative DR Mom. So the book just came out a few months ago, the Perimenopause Reset. It kind of has everything in there. I kind of wanted to have something over the last decade of practicing integrative medicine, just something that I could offer to women to get started. And if you follow everything in there, I mean, you're gonna almost get there. You might need someone to niche down your supplements a little bit or to prescribe progesterone, but it's really gonna help women out there. And it is faith-based. I think that having peace in perimenopause is so important too, because we can be more easily triggered and we can be attacked more spiritually. And I see that a lot with women is like you're down and the devil's just waiting there, like a lion ready to pounce. And I think just letting women know that we can, through prayer and through, you know, reading the Bible and having friends that are praying for us, that we can get through perimenopause, and it can be great. It can be such a great time. So, but I really appreciate you, Dr. Heidi and Dr. Serena, and it's been such a great time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And that has been another episode of Hormone Heroines. If this has resonated with you, please share it with someone who you think also needs to hear it. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Hormone Heroines. If this episode spoke to you, follow the show and share it with someone who also needs to hear it. And write a review. That helps more people find their way back to balance.